Two fabulous war films in this review. The first is the 4K of the 2019 World War I drama 1917, and the second is the Blu-ray of the 1993 epic Gettysburg, probably the best recreation of the American Civil War ever committed to film. "1917" is a fictional story set, as the name suggests, sometime in 1917. It appears to be spring, early summer, judging by the lack of devastation to the landscape, the green grass, the wildflowers everywhere. It seems to be pretty colourful compared to what we're used to seeing when it comes to World War I. Anyway, two lance corporals are given a hazardous mission to set off across no man's land to reach a cut-off British troop of around 1,600 men who are planning to go over the top the following morning to attack some German trenches because they've got some false information that the Germans have vacated their trenches. Apparently it's all a trap, and one of the lance corporals, by the name of Blake, his brother is one of the lieutenants in that troop, and he wants to get there to stop that attack, at least to save his brother's life as well as the other 1,600 men. Lance Corporal Blake is played by Dean Charles Chapman, and Lance Corporal Schofield is played by George Mackay, and they are undoubtedly the stars of this drama. But it's also a who's who of top British cinema actors. You'll see bit parts from various big names in this. There's Benedict Cumberbatch, Colin Firth, and then Mark Strong as well. He pops up at some point to move the story along. But also Daniel Mays, who may not be a name you know so well, but when you see his face, you know you've seen him in plenty of other films and dramas. Sam Mendes was the respected director of this film. He's probably best known for his work on the James Bond film Skyfall, but also American Beauty. Anyway, his name preceded this film, and Arri were encouraged to get their new Alexa Mini LF camera ready for them ahead of the game so that they could use it especially for this release. And it was really the use of this camera that gave it that unique look, that made it look like it was done in just one or two takes. Now that wasn't the case, but it was very cleverly thought out, and the cuts between the takes, very often it's going into the black, but quite often there are actually cuts between trees and that, and they made it line up so they could match the two shots and they could then cut. But some of these takes were around 6 minutes in duration, so I would imagine there were a lot of unexpected things happened in there and a lot of mistakes, but it all came together so well it really does look flawless. It's probably thanks to that new Arri camera that the resultant image quality is top notch, although it may look a little unrealistic at times on your system. I played with the HDR settings, and by setting down from bright environment to light environment, which is available on Panasonic players, if you don't have that, you can go through the menu system on Panasonic, so it's probably the same on Sony's and all other makes. But this made the film look much better on my system. There are a couple of dark sequences which may be problematic as a result, most notably in the devastated French town which our lead character has to traverse and is chased through before hurling himself off a deep drop into a river, but other than that this is probably about as good as it gets. Some of the shots of that devastated French town, that really did look like World War I to me, and in my opinion they were the best scenes in the whole picture. The Blu-ray is very good quality, but compared to the 4K, it does look a little lackluster, and that's probably the HDR, the high dynamic range, giving the 4K disc the edge yet again. Now, it doesn't have that distinctive film look, but possibly that wasn't possible given that this was designed to be shot to look like it was one single shot or two or three shots, something like that. And it is that Arri video camera that largely made this possible. Because it's so small, they were able to hand it off from a Steadicam onto a gimbal, onto a truck, while still shooting, and it all plays out perfectly. It's quite an amazing mastery of the filmmaking art, which the extra features, which are all available on the 4K disc in 4K, those extra features suggest this is all due to Mr. Mendes' ideas and determination. He certainly did achieve something unique. The aspect ratio is 2.39 to 1, the sound is Dolby Atmos. There was a 1.9 to 1 format release for those cinemas claiming to screen IMAX, but clearly this was not genuine 70mm 15perf IMAX. This 4K disc is taken from a genuine 4K master though, so that is another reason why it looks so good. I purchased my copy in the current 2 for £30 offer at HMV. Gettysburg was in the 2 for £15 Blu-ray offer. Now I've been avoiding this Blu-ray for many years because I've had the Laserdisc since 1995 and it is probably my favourite ever Laserdisc, although conversely it's probably also the worst image quality I've got on any Laserdisc, so not NTSC format's finest hour. My late Uncle Fred is responsible for my interest in the film Gettysburg. He made me aware of this film just after it had done its few cinematic rounds in Britain. I think it made an appearance here towards the end of September 1994 and hardly made an appearance anywhere. However, annoyingly, they had a 70mm blow-up of it at the MGM on Shaftesbury Avenue, which at the time was just a 10-minute walk from where I lived. And annoyingly now, I failed to get down there to see it. Uncle Fred became known to me as Uncle Fredericksburg, and for those of us that know their American Civil War history, they'll get an idea of why that was. Anyway, he used to say to me that he would really like to get across the Atlantic to see the battlefield at Gettysburg, but sadly he never made it. However, in 2015, my wife and I had an assignment in Virginia, a filming assignment, and I saw how close that was to Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, and I thought, let's add an extra day on the front and then we can do a hotel visit to Gettysburg. And we actually booked a hotel right at the side of the main battlefield and spent the following day walking the entire perimeter of the whole battle, which if I remember correctly was around 20 miles. It has been preserved so well that I would recommend a trip to anyone because it is like travelling back in time to 1863. Before returning home after our filming trip was complete, we called in at the site of the Battle of Fredericksburg, which somehow seemed appropriate. This is an epic war film thanks to 5,000 Civil War reenactors who took part, and of course they all had their own replica uniforms and kits, so the added production value they brought must have been incalculable. The Blu-ray has the director's cut and it runs for 4.5 hours. The theatrical cut is on the pair of DVDs and runs for just over 4 hours. Screen ratio is 1:85 to 1. Image quality is good, but not the best Blu-ray quality out there. It doesn't look to me like it went through the most fastidious of transfers, so probably not from the original camera negative. Some shots are overly grainy and definition is sometimes lacking, but that was filmmaking back in 1993. Sound is DTS-HD. Turn it up loud, and at the end of this fabulous film, you'll feel almost like you've actually been through the Battle of Gettysburg. I think both films are highly recommended, with 1917 undoubtedly having the edge in terms of picture and sound, surely among the best 4K image quality releases. But Gettysburg is among my favourite all-time films, so despite not being such exceptional video as 1917, it is a fabulous film and well worth taking a look at. One last thing I'll mention is the score by Randy Edelman, which one of my favourite all-time scores. But I will say they do overuse it a little in places, and particularly when the American generals are talking to each other and they're all sounding profound. Well, it's hard to believe they were really that profound back in 1863. But this is a fabulous score, and I got this as soon as I saw the film and I've loved it ever since. Anyway, a lot of people have been leaving comments for me that they'd like to know more about film formats, and most notably Super 8, because they'd like to have the odd film presentation at home. So I may do a video on how to get into that, what to look out for sometime in the future. And also, the Ten Commandments is coming up in 4K in a couple of weeks as we record this. Now, when I tell you that that was filmed in VistaVision and with colour by Technicolor, I think by now, if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I'm expecting that to be one of the best 4K discs we've yet had. So keep watching to learn more about that one, as I've got it on pre-order. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to create even more content like this in the future. So until the next time, bye bye for now.